In this Elden Ring Nightreign video, we're going to be taking a look at all 8 classes in the game. I'm going to be ranking them all. I'm going to be telling you about each one of them, why you may want to play it or why you might not. And I'll also be talking about why we've ranked them the way that we've ranked them, so you can get a better understanding of what you can expect from the different characters in the game. So we're going to start at the bottom of the list first, and then we'll get into the better characters as we move upward. And first character on our list that comes in at rank C is Duchess. Now, there are a few reasons that Duchess is on the bottom of the list. And the first thing is that she has a very, very low health pool for being a melee character that makes her very not new player friendly, meaning that if you've just picked up the game and you're just playing for the first time, or maybe you've only got it done a few runs and you're using her, you might have a rough time and you might get downed very often, and getting down in combat can cause quite the panic with your team as they have to get you up while trying to avoid attacks from bosses and things like that. So that's number one. She does have a very high skill ceiling, though, meaning that good players who play Duchess can use her very, very effectively. Her restage ability is absolutely deadly in a good party that does very high damage. So it's not to say that she can't be played well or she can't contribute to a team. It's just that it's very hard to play her when you're first starting out. And if you have a mediocre team, or you're playing with randoms and you don't know how good they are, it's possible that you won't be able to take advantage as much of restage. And lastly, her utility that she provides to the group is kind of average at best. She can make her whole group go invisible for about 10 seconds or so with her ultimate, but the situations and where you might need this are rare. Like, you might need it in a boss fight to get some reses. That can be a good opportunity, but compared to some other people's ultimate abilities that can just straight res, which is a bit better than this, it's not quite as good. Like, Guardian can res and deal damage while also protecting the group. Recluse can res, Revenant can res, so it's like kind of a weaker version of those ultimates, and the scenarios where you might cloak moving through the map are few and far between. So moving up to B rank, we actually have 2 characters here, and I'll talk about why these are on our list. B rank, by the way, is like average, right? So you got A and S above, C and D below. So these kind of come in at the middle in terms of their effectiveness in combat, so let's talk about them. So first up at B rank is Guardian. Guardian has extremely good survivability. He has the highest health pool in the game. He starts with a great shield, so he can block a lot of attacks. So he's a very good character for a new player that, doesn't really know the mechanics of the game. And he has a really, really strong ultimate for randomized groups. His ultimate can not only protect your entire group from damage for 5 seconds if you hold it, but it can also res people even if they have 3 bars full if he crashes down into them. So that's really, really strong. The problem with this ultimate is that when you're playing in a good group or a pretty seasoned group, that becomes less valuable because people aren't going down as often, and that ultimate doesn't deal very much damage. So you tend to not use it hardly at all. I mean, it can be used situationally, but the value of it goes down the better your group is. Additionally, Guardian typically has the lowest damage in the group. This isn't always true, but because he's trying to block and one-hand a lot of the time, he's going to lose out on damage to spellcasters, to other characters that are meleeing with two-handed weapons or dual-wielding. So his damage is usually lower, and he also has a dodge that is very weak. Like, he cannot dodge out of a lot of AoE attacks simply because it doesn't go very far, and there are some scenarios in boss fights where that can really, really work against him, whereas if you're tanking with any other character like Wilder, or you're tanking with Raider even, you could dodge roll out of the way of some of those attacks, but Guardian can't do that as easily, and that really is why he comes in at a B. Talking about Wilder next, Wilder is a very beginner-friendly class, which is one of his strengths because his Sixth Sense ability that prevents death can re-trigger every time he runs by a site of grace. This is really good for new players, and again, it's another ability, though, that becomes less and less useful the better and better at the game you become. And obviously, you don't want to plan for failure, you want to plan for success in this game, but he is a very new player-friendly class, and his skill ceiling is very low, so he's very easy to learn how to play, but like even an average Wilder isn't going to play that much worse than a fantastic Wilder most of the time. And he does have really good survivability because of that Sixth Sense ability, and he also has a fantastic ultimate that is very good at stance breaking that provides some utility to the group if you are all kind of going for stance breaks, or are focusing a bit more on stance breaks than you would typically. And that's kind of what he provides utility-wise. He doesn't have anything else that really helps the group. He's kind of focusing on interrupting a boss and stance breaking with that ultimate. And if you lean into that in your group and you kind of focus on stance breaks, that can work really, really well. That's all in terms of utility that he really provides. So we have 3 characters at A rank, and we're going to talk about Executor first and why it belongs in A rank. So Executor has several things going for it that are pretty good. It is actually much more new player friendly than you would first think. Really learning to use Suncatcher is kind of the biggest skill ceiling of this and how to use it effectively. And this character does have a very high skill ceiling. You will see a drastic difference between a brand new Executor and a very seasoned Executor. But the strength of this class is the fact that it can deflect almost every attack in the game, making it an effective tank. And then it can go into attacking afterward, and that can work really, really well. Also, when you do deflect attacks, you charge up Suncatcher, making you do more damage. And because when you deflect properly, you don't lose any stamina, it can actually be easier to deflect attacks once you get the hang of it than it is to like block attacks with Guardian and manage your stamina. So that's one of the strengths of it. Additionally, it has bleed buildup on its starting weapon, which is absolutely fantastic for doing hemorrhage procs on targets, dealing lots of damage to them, so that's very strong. And its ultimate is really good as well. It will heal you to full when you use it. It'll give you a larger health pool, and you can attack as like a big monster, as a big aspect of the Crucible Beast in like lots of AoE radius, and you can deal lots of damage while tanking lots of damage. And you can also use like the roar of it to like res teammates at range, so there is some utility there. Not a ton of utility with this class. It plays predominantly for itself, which is why it's not up in S rank. And also because in order to be very effective, you have to be able to like deflect attacks. Like that's the strength of the class. And sometimes if you're playing in a group, depending on what your group composition is, the boss may not be targeting you. And when that's not happening, you're not going to deflect as much, which, you know, kind of removes some of the actual mechanics of the class. This is also a very strong class solo because of the deflect mechanic, because bosses will be targeting you, and it's probably one of the best solo classes. So moving on to Recluse, she's also at A rank on our list, and there are a few reasons for that. I think she would be much higher on this list if it weren't for 2 things. Those are the fact that she's not very beginner friendly, because you not only have to learn how to manage her FP properly, which can take a little bit to learn, but you have to manage and remember her magic cocktail combinations in order to be very effective. And usually what will happen is someone will memorize a couple that they like, go for those, and then eventually remember the rest, but that can take time to do. She also has very, very poor survivability. Her HP is like the lowest or tied for the lowest in the game, so she doesn't have a lot of hits before she goes down. Otherwise, she would be higher on the list. However, she has a very high skill ceiling, because if you can memorize those magic cocktail recipes, or even some of the good ones of it, and go for those in combat, they have some very, very devastating effects, like giving you infinite FP for a while, or healing your party, things that are very, very useful in combat. And she also has really, really good burst damage if she gets some spells, and she can play safely at range compared to some other classes when you're not sure like what a boss attack is or what it does. She also has access to different damage types because of her spells, so she can play into the weaknesses of certain bosses a little bit better than some other classes. And her ultimate has really, really good utility in the sense that it can provide healing for the group, it can provide FP, in some cases it can even res. So she has a really strong utility, she has really good burst damage in certain situations. If you learn her magic cocktail, she can be really, really strong. She's just really squishy, and she takes a while to learn, so she won't be one that everyone will use initially. And our last character at rank A is Revenant. And Revenant isn't higher on our list for similar reasons to Recluse. She has very low survivability due to her HP pool. She actually has to melee a little bit early on in the game until she gets better spells as well, and she doesn't have a way to replenish FP like Recluse, so she will be meleeing more. And because she has such a low HP pool, this puts her in danger of dying a lot, so that can be very difficult to play, which is one of the reasons she's not very beginner friendly. And additionally, it can take a little bit to learn how to use her summons and when to use them, etc., and like what spells are good for her to use, so she's not quite as beginner friendly as some other classes. However, she has some of the best utility in her group, because her summons that she can get from using her class ability and also from her passive ability tend to take aggro off your party onto them. This can really free up other party members to attack safely, whether it's at range or in melee combat, and that can be really strong. It can also assist her in not having enemies attack her, which is really nice. And because she has S-scaling in Faith, she can use incantations very, very effectively, just like Recluse. Those are the only 2 characters that have S-scaling in Faith. And incantations, in my experience, tend to be on average stronger than the spells that are available in Elden Ring Nightreign. So when she's casting spells, she's usually out damaging Recluse. The difference is that Recluse can replenish her FP more easily and keep casting, whereas Revenant has a hard time doing this and might need some Starlight Shards to accomplish this. So those are really the reasons that Revenant is really strong. When you get those summons out and you're flinging really powerful spells, she can deal extremely good burst while also supporting her party. And her ultimate is also extremely strong. It can res party members. It makes everyone invulnerable for 15 seconds if they are alive. And that can save you through like very difficult phases, and it's just very, very good overall. So coming in at S rank, you may have guessed that Iron Eye is on the list, but we also have Raider here. We put both of these at S rank. So let's get into why we think these are the best two classes to play, or best two Nightfarers to play in Elden Ring Nightreign. So first up is Iron Eye. And Iron Eye is arguably the most beginner-friendly class in the game. The difference between a brand new Iron Eye and a super skilled Iron Eye is there, but the gap between them is so much smaller than some of the other classes in this game, which means that if you see an Iron Eye in your party when you go into a random match, your odds of beating it are instantly higher than, you know, if they had picked some other character, even if they've never played the game before, which is great. Additionally, Iron Eye can attack very rapidly with the bow compared to other classes, and he doesn't have to manage his FP like Revenant does or like Recluse does in order to keep casting spells. He can just keep attacking, which is an advantage he has over them. And in a lot of fights where bosses are running around and they're very mobile and Melee's chasing after them trying to damage them, he doesn't have to move as much to keep dealing damage. So he has some of the most consistent DPS in the game. And additionally, his survivability is actually pretty good. He has lower HP pool than most of the characters in the game, but because he's playing at range and he can read attacks and he's not worrying about managing his FP, when he's not attacking, he can dodge and he can stay out of the way of a lot of attacks, which makes him not die as much. And additionally, his marking skill is really good at evasion as well. It doesn't have iframes on it, but you can slide through enemies or bosses that are about to attack you, get behind them, and now you're in a safe position compared to being in front of them. So between the staying at range and that ability, he typically doesn't die that much in combat. So that's another reason he's so good. And lastly, he brings a couple of things that are very good utility to the group. First of all, he'll make it so that every person in the group gets more item drops from killing enemies, which is nice. It's not the strongest utility in the game, but it's still nice to have. And also, because damaging party members that are down revives them, he can do this at range. He doesn't need FP to do it. He's very, very fast compared to some of the spells. So he is probably the best reser in your group, or one of them, besides like if you have Guardian or something, because he can just do it so quickly at range. And lastly, we come to Raider, and the reason we have Raider at S here is because it's another very beginner-friendly class. It's not as beginner-friendly as Iron Eye because meleeing puts you in danger more often, but it's a super tanking class. It has more HP than Wilder, and also its character skill allows you to tank through a hit and basically mitigate like 80 to 90% of the damage, while also dealing some damage and stance damage. So if you see a big attack incoming, you can use this skill to mitigate some of that damage while also being offensive at the same time, which just gives you a little bit of an advantage over Wilder in that sense, because Wilder doesn't have a way to tank through hits. He has to basically avoid them when he's in melee range, which isn't always possible. He also has S scaling in strength, making it so that he will use strength weapons more effectively than Wilder. So if you like to use big weapons and two-hand them and stuff like that, he's going to be better at it than Wilder is a little bit because of his scaling is a bit better, as long as you're going for like a purely strength scaling weapon and not a quality weapon that has both strength and dexterity. And lastly, his ultimate ability has a lot of uses. It can deal damage, deal stance damage in an AoE. It can trap bosses inside it for a little while, which can be annoying sometimes, but also extremely helpful if you need a breather for a second, especially like on some of the late, Night Lord bosses. If you can trap them inside, that can be really great for your team to just give them a second. And that ultimate also buffs your team's attack power if they're near it and they can climb up on it. So if you're like got casters or ranged characters that can stand on it and attack safely. So there's some utility in his ultimate as well that Wilder just doesn't have, right? Like Wilder's is good for stance breaks, but this kind of gives you stance damage, also buffs your team, and has other applications as well, which is why he's ranked higher than Wilder on here because of those things. So that wraps up our video on the classes and how we've ranked them and kind of what they do in combat. I hope you got a better sense of what to look for in this game, and also a better sense of how your runs will go when you are playing with randoms throughout your playthrough. Remember that we have the Fextra password, FEXTRA, all caps, if you want to play with the Fextra Life community. And we will be live streaming as well at launch, so feel free to drop by and come play with us. I want to hear from you guys, though. For those of you out there that are just playing Elden Ring Nightreign or played the network test, what do you make of our class ranking? Do you think we are spot on? Do you think we're off? Do you think we're close? What is your class ranking list? Let me know in the comments below.